Hi, I'm John Landau, producer of Alita Battle Angel. And joining me for this exclusive Q&A are director Robert Rodriguez, producer James Cameron, Alita herself, Rosa Salazar, Christoph Waltz, and Jennifer Connelly. I want to thank everybody for submitting questions. We're going to try and answer as many as we can this evening. Jim, I want to start with you. We have a question from Zarix on Twitter. What elements of the story inspired you the most to adapt the manga to the big screen?
Zarix, hey. So I got to set the Wayback Machine for 20 years ago. My friend Guillermo del Toro turned me on to the manga series from the artist Yukito Kishiro, Japanese manga artist. And what I responded to was actually Alita's character. The world was great, and all the other characters were amazing as well, and a lot of kind of crazy cyborg bodies and that sort of thing. But my eldest daughter, was 8 at the time, and I was learning how to see the world through the eyes of a young woman or a young girl who was, fast approaching womanhood, and I thought, how great would it be to make a movie about that process? I'd already sort of done it a little bit with Titanic, but I thought, let's do it in the science fiction domain. And I also just love the action, frankly, but I really related to it through the eyes of Alita. And those big eyes have seen a lot in the past, and they see a lot across the course of Kishiro's books. And it just seemed like it was made in heaven for me to make that movie.
So this question's for you, Rosa. From Camilla, who's actually seeing the movie tonight in Dallas. How does Alita's journey reflect what many young people experience in real life as they grow?
Well, having gone through that journey myself, I know how challenging it can be, how arduous that journey is. Coming of age is extremely harrowing. And just to survive that, you are a hero. And I think that's what makes Alita a hero. She's not a superhero who's born with extraordinary qualities. She discovers these qualities by going inward, by taking that journey to get to know herself, and that is how she becomes empowered. So anyone who survives that journey, I think, can pat themselves on the back. You're a hero.
And in the film, you have a father figure, and Christoph Waltz's character, Ito, and this question's for you. It's from Monica, who's seeing the movie tonight in Salt Lake City.
Hello, Monica.
Alita is very much like most teenagers in that she struggles to find her place in the world. As her surrogate father, how do you feel about the realization when she determines that she is destined to be a hunter-warrior?
Well, fathers try to protect their daughters, especially their daughters. With sons, it's just trying to avoid the worst. But this father is, I'd say, is a little different because it's more a mentor father. He defines the spirit of Alita and preserves it and tries to enable it to live in this completely crazy world that she's thrown into. And being a father is always there's an element of guilt involved that you can't protect sufficiently. So I think that kind of
But he
circumscribes it.
He resists her attempt to become herself
well,
which is part of that complex psychology.
Exactly. There's more than just the responsibility and the supervision. There is Sigmund Freud was very busy for many years about that issue.
Right.
So an attachment that you don't want to give up, that you don't want to release.
A second chance at that attachment.
And that's the great thing about parenthood. You know, there's a point in that relationship where you have to be able to let them go.
Yeah.
You just never know when that point really is. So it's always like holding back as much as you can, and so
it's
you're
an
convinced.
extremely hard thing. Ask your father.
So there's a, Jennifer, you also have a maternal role in this movie, and this question comes from Edgar, who's seeing the film in Paris. First of all, He loves your whole career. I love your whole career.
Thank you. Thank you.
How-
Thank you. Wow.
How
I
would
like
you
you more than your career.
Oh, thanks.
How would you describe the character of Shirin?
Well, when you first encounter her in the movie, I think that she is aspirant. She aspires to be anywhere other than where she is, and she's very much in denial about where she is. I think it's a defense mechanism. I think that she has this maternal grief that she's buried so deeply, and so to escape the grief, she fantasizes if she escapes Iron City, she'll escape the grief somehow. So she's sort of put all of her hopes into transcending this place.
And I think the amazing thing about the story is how many people Alita's story touches. She changes you. She changes you.
Of her dropping into that
it's a ripple
scrapyard
effect.
affects everyone she meets.
It's like you said in your notes, when you gave me the notes, you said Alita's like a little pebble hurling through space, pinging everything along the way. It's her innocence, it's her purity, it's those big loving eyes that sort of melts these prejudices or icy hearts.
She's innocent and naive, but she's not dumb. She's not weak.
And speaking of being not weak, the next question for Rosa comes from Emily, who's seeing the film in London.
Hi, Emily.
What is Panzerkunst, and is it something you had to train for?
Panzerkunst is from the original manga written by Yukito Kishiro. He created a zero-gravity fighting style. I can defy gravity now. Next question. No, wouldn't that be great? We did a combination of martial arts, sort of an amalgamation in order to achieve something close to Panzerkunst. We did some Muay Thai, some Eagle Claw, some staff work, which is my favorite, and a lot of kickboxing. Early on, Jim said, we don't want to get 2 kicks out of her, and then she's we got a long day, we're in the performance capture suit, and he's right, it takes a lot of endurance even to train day after day. So that's how we kind of put together a melange of martial arts to achieve something close to Panzerkunst, but we also had brilliant a stunt woman named Mickey Facinello. I say, I take it this far, Mickey takes it this far, and then Weta takes it this far. So it's a group effort to achieve Panzerkunst.
They put a little more range in your jumps.
That's right. Just a little, about
Just
10
a little
feet.
bit, yeah.
What's great about the training is that you don't always have to break into a fight. When you have that
Right.
warrior mindset, even her at rest, it's the warrior at rest, it's not Rosa at rest. So that was really essential, so that even going into or out of an action, or even when she's just being, there is this always a very strong warrior within.
That was such a lovely byproduct from the training that I didn't know would come out. I was physically getting stronger. I was toning my core, but I was also toning my core up here. It takes a lot of determination to go in every day. Some days you go in and you feel the progress you're making, and it's very easy to be positive. I'm doing this. And then other days you go in and you're absolute garbage. And there are a lot of days I would sob on the mat and pound the mat and say, like, why won't my mind connect to my feet? But what it does day after day when you push through that, you're learning how to be that warrior at rest. You're learning how to face your limitations, and that makes you stronger. It's an incredible metaphor for life.
I think it informed your posture, just the way, just in a scene, how you stood, how you balanced, how you carried your weight. That training, becomes a kind of a Zen-centered kind of thing, and the performance capture misses nothing. It's accurate to a couple of millimeters, and every aspect of your physical performance and your facial performance comes through in the character, so it's all there.
Well, and I think that's one of the keys. We did this with performance capture. We pushed the technology beyond, but people oftentimes ask me, and this applies to the next question for you, Christoph, and this is from Max, who is seeing the film in Phoenix tonight. How did it affect you as an actor that Alita was created by Rosa doing performance capture?
It affected me as a person that Alita was created by Rosa while we were working. The performance capture is something that plays no role in this process whatsoever. Look, I always say that. I played a knight in armor. I didn't ask my partner whether it irritates him that I'm wearing a tin, you know.
Right.
When you ride on a horse with a hat, you know, that's a given. It's a pretty, let's say, difficult given to deal with. You know, I had a bad accident with a horse once, but here are just two actors working together, doing what the story requires, and that's about it.
Yeah, and Robert, you know, I know this was a movie where in the past you've done Sin City. There's a lot of green screen. We built a
Right.
lot of practical sets on this. You know, why was that important to you on this movie to sort of change?
I had to change completely how I make movies. To make something, and I wanted to learn that, how Jim does his movies. My movies tend to be really whimsical because I was a cartoonist. Jim was an illustrator. That's different. Cartoonist is very whimsical. An illustrator draws mechanical things that work. And so for me, like, a guy can pick up a guitar case and fire a missile, and I don't think the audience really needs to know how it works. You know, they can go with it in one of my movies. That wouldn't fly with Jim. Jim would say, how does that work? How does that reload? How did you engineer that? I don't buy it. It pulls me out of the movie. And he told me something that I couldn't unhear once he told me early in the process, thankfully. He said, when I do science fiction or fantasy, I believe it has to be utterly real, completely believable, and grounded. Otherwise, you don't buy the fantasy. So I thought, wow, okay, I have to change completely how I do everything. I'm not going to shoot on green screen at all. I don't want this layer of artifice on everything. I want to build real sets, have real locations, real actors around her, a real orange. It'll be harder for Weta to match her in, but she'll feel really grounded. And you like taking a vacation from yourself sometimes and learning another way to do it. And so the ground floor table stakes was that it had to be completely real. And so that's what we went for. And I think it enhanced everyone's performance to have real sets, real locations, really be in Iron City. And it made it feel more relatable than a lot of futuristic stories that seem to tend to be very cold and unrelatable because they're so far in the future. This felt like a very relatable, tangible, tactile world.
And what a gift for us to play in Iron City. We get asked all the time, what was it like to work on green screen? They think that everything is computer generated around us. We had such luscious environment to work with. The cybernetic office of Dr. Dyson Ito, there are tables with nuts and bolts and parts that you will never pick up and use potentially in a scene, but it's there. It's all there informing us almost by osmosis. We walk out onto Iron City and there are people and there's a cobblestone street, and I spent maybe 2-3 days on a soundstage. That was such a gift for us that we didn't have to imagine all of that. I had an orange, I had a Christoph, I had a city.
A Christoph.
A Christoph, yes.
Well, we have one at our disposal anytime.
We were talking about computer generating
The
you.
thing that made me absolutely enthusiastic about this set is that the craft, the level of craft, and the fact that the craft is the same that would have been necessary to build that 300 years ago.
Well,
it's classic.
Yeah, it's classic.
Yes.
And that's what we talked about, which is that what you see is the future of a future of essentially our present.
Right.
So why would architecture that was good 300 years ago not be still good 300 years from now? So everything is not all shiny technical sets. It's a lived-in future.
Yeah.
But we're seeing it after a fall from a higher technological level. So it's this palimpsest. It's this overlay of contemporary architecture, past architecture. And you know, we chose to set it in Latin America because there's a space elevator in the
Right.
story, and you have to be on the equator. So it's somewhere in Panama,
Science
someplace.
fact
It was a
again.
science, science fact.
reason
Got to
he
be at
chose
the
that
equator.
city, but it gave
It's
us
physics.
Great color
Okay,
palette.
I didn't make up the rules.
Hey, it gave us a great color palette.
There's something else involved in physics. I really feel science fiction is the ideal domain to tell and think and look at our world.
Yes, exactly.
And
It's a
if we-
mirror of us. Yep.
It's us today.
Sure.
And therefore, it needs to be tangible, recognizable,
Relatable,
yeah.
perceivable, graspable for us today, not for some fictitious viewer 200 years from now.
And
Although
just-
we want them to see the movie too.
We want them to
in
see the
IMAX
movie today.
5D, whatever we will have then.
Oh, today.
So Jennifer, your character has a role in Motorball, and this question comes from Luca in Italy. What can you tell us about Motorball? Because that's contrasting everything we've just been talking about. We're talking about real sets and this and that.
That's true.
And now we get this fantastical sport to see only on the big screen. What can you tell us about Motorball?
Well, it's I think their biggest form of entertainment in Iron City, and it's this spectacular high-speed sport game. And Shirin builds competitors. She builds champions, and it sort of ties back to her sort of laser-focused dream of getting back to Zalem, because if she builds a winning champion, she's told that she can ascend. Yeah, it's just this kind of vicious, gnarly, exciting, fast-paced game with all different kinds of different kinds of competitors speeding around the track.
I love that you're this super smart engineer, and you run these teams. You're like a businesswoman, and you're just large and in charge of this high tech situation. I mean, there's these interesting female sort of prototypes in this movie.
And that's one thing that I think that you are so rightly celebrated for, are the roles that you've created for women and the opportunities you've given women, these sort of iconic women characters in cinema.
Thank you.
And I think you've done that again here. You all have everyone involved in making
And
the film.
no better time to do it.
No better. Well, every time is a great time to do it, and now.
Yeah, I think there's timeliness, in the sense of female empowerment about this film, and people seem to be leaning into that and embracing it, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I really loved about it when I read the script. I really loved as a woman, but also as a mother of a little girl who's 7 now.
Right.
I love that this story exists. That Alita is this kind of. She's innocent and she's pure and she's beautiful, but she's also a fighter and she's a warrior, and she
Right.
has that, and she has that rage, and she has that potential for violence. And how does she integrate that? And how does she sort of recognize that and come to terms with it, and harness it and use it in a way that's constructive? And
Yeah, that's what I like about Alita too. She's dynamic. She's
and
like a
that-
12-sided die of attributes and flaws and emotions. She's everything. It's not just a myopic look at a strong female character.
Yeah.
So, Robert, let me ask you a question. This is from Dwan, who's seeing the film tonight in Orlando. You and James Cameron are considered unique storytellers. How would you characterize your collaboration on this?
It was, Jim called it when it was first announced we were going to work on this, and it's because it helped that we've actually known each other a long time. He said, it's going to be like we're making a go-kart together, and it really was that fun. We were making something, it's a really fast go-kart, but something that we both really wanted to see, and it was going to be challenging, but it helped that I had been friends with him, because I had visited him on a lot of his sets. I saw him doing Avatar. I remember seeing him doing Avatar and doing the performance capture, and he's very much a great mentor and teacher. He teaches you how it works, and he showed me the artwork, saying, maybe in 3 years when this comes out, it'll be that photoreal. I don't know. I thought, how can you shoot blind like that? That's amazing.
Gotta leap off the cliff.
How can you leap like that? And then, of course, now I've done it. So, but having seen him do that, it helped me know that you have to take a leap of faith. You don't know what it's going to look like. You just got to rely on your script. The story has to be right. We worked a long time getting that right. And then you just hope, the dice falls the right way, and that the technology is able to be built in time before it comes out. And so that whole process, and at the end of the day, for him to call me and say that he thinks it's a stunning film and that it works, is just so gratifying, because it's not like a regular job. You're actually working with your friend. You don't want to let your friend down first and foremost, but then that friend is Jim Cameron. You don't want to let Jim Cameron down. Sure. And he knew what that feeling was like, and he mentored me the way that he would want to have a partner.
But you've sort of defined that about yourself. I mean, I think when you first burst on the scene, everybody thought you were this rebel iconoclast, difficult character, and you're not at all. You're really an amazing collaborator, and you collaborated with Quentin, you collaborated with Frank Miller,
right.
and you celebrate your collaborations. And so, and I knew you well enough that going into this, I thought, you know, I have to honor you and respect you and give you the space to go make the movie. And I think the sort of verbal contract was, we're gonna work on this together in pre, you know. We'll go through the script. You know, Robert took the script from me. He carved it down. I knew by what you cut and what you kept that you got the film, and that I was really going to have relatively little to do.
Coming back to you, Rosa, and this is from James Stringer via Facebook.
Hello.
In a decade of strong female characters in movies, how did you try to make Alita stand out?
Well, first of all, when I got the role, I felt like I had been inducted into some kind of film honor society. The two of you have been creating this, as Jennifer said, have been creating these female characters for decades, and we appreciate it. Alita's unique just in who she is. And Yukito Kishiro wrote Alita that way as well. How did I try to make her different? I wasn't really focused on trying to make her different. I was focused on making sure that I was capturing that, that timeline, that chronological order sort of a woman's metamorphosis. I think that in itself is different. We don't always get to see that transition play out on screen. So I just, even in the way that she's written, even in the way that she was transposed from book to this medium, she is unique just in the way that she is and who she is.
But you created the arc flawlessly. I mean, the two of you created the arc flawlessly, because she's very wide-eyed and innocent and curious and excited, and she seems so much younger at the beginning, and she goes through a physical transformation as well as her body adapts to her subconscious self-image.
And I went back to that journey. I also felt a fair amount of catharsis going back to that journey. It was easy for me to match that up with my own journey from girlhood to womanhood. So that was really the theme for me, was to make sure it resembled that as much as possible.
It's such a heart-forward character to be such a warrior. That she's so much about her heart. And you know, for me, but the takeaway from this movie and why it feels so timely is that everyone else in that town just thinks that place is terrible. They all want to leave. And you can look at the world with those eyes, but they all then see it through her eyes, which, because of the amnesia, she's wide-eyed, innocent, sees everything with such beauty that it just takes one person to decide that we can create change in this world by the way we see the world. We can see this place as being a terrible world right now, or you can see it as, I can inspire something more, starting with myself, and now branch out.
And the one who created the world, Yukito Kishiro, this question is from RGD Testa via Instagram. What was Kishiro's role involved in the production?
Well, you had met him early on about it, and then we would send him updates throughout. You did it even before I came on. You all would always update him on the latest script and the latest art. And then I think you flew out there and showed him the art when we were ready to shoot.
Right.
We brought him to the set, and he was blown away getting to see the set, meeting you, right? What did he say when he met you? Alita.
Yeah, I threw my arms around his neck. I said, hello, and he went, Alita.
And I've seen that look before. When Frank Miller saw his world come into life, you know, when you're a cartoonist, you know, or a graphic novelist, you're sitting there drawing, you never expect these things to pop out and talk to you.
Right.
So he's there seeing his world come to life, and in such an authentic way. And he was blown away, and seeing his lead character run up to him and embrace him. It's very surreal, and he's seen the movie since, and was very surprised how much heart there was in it, and what it inspired in us as artists, what we saw in his work and went with and ran with. And that's the greatest feedback.
I think one of the key steps in the whole process in the relationship with Kishiro was, Jim, before we actually closed the deal with the rights, you flew over to Tokyo and met with him and made a commitment to him, really.
Well, it's interesting. I hadn't written anything yet. Really loved the character, loved the world. And I said to him, yeah, I really see her as a kind of a Joan of Arc. She's gonna lead people against oppression. He said, Alita's not a leader. She's a Ronin. She's a solo warrior. I went, oh crap! I guess I missed that. But I took it to heart, right? Yeah. And that's the story that we tell. She always is best on her own, I think. Not that she isn't connected to everybody around her, but she's not afraid to be on her own, and she'll stand up against the biggest guy in town. And of course, one of the villains is what, 8 or 9 feet tall,
Yeah.
you know, and she just is not cowed by this guy at all. And, you know, we love that about her, right?
Yes.
About that sense of confidence and centeredness. But she's kind of a solo act. She doesn't ask permission to do anything.
That's right.
So now I'm going to get to
Unfortunately,
probably,
which is part of your conflict, right?
I'm going to get to what's probably the hardest question. This is going to be our last question before we wrap things up. And it's a hard question because it comes from Twitter, and they're asking for just one word that describes the film. So I'm going to start with you, Rosa. What one word would you use to describe the film?
I'm going to say epic.
Epic.
Epic. That's great.
Robert?
For me, inspiring. From,
you took
from
my
day
word,
one.
dude.
I know, that's why you don't want to
This
be
is the
last.
kind of collaboration.
So I'm
We
going
think alike.
to skip you, give you time to think about it. Jennifer?
Ooh, spectacular.
Spectacular. Christoph?
Complete.
Complete. And Jim?
Yeah, I think that's good. Dynamic.
Dynamic. All right.
John?
Yeah,
No.
you don't get off. I think John would say
Dan-
done.
No,
Out in theaters.
Yeah.
rewarding.
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 Very nice.
So it's been a rewarding experience for me to work with all of
Wait a
you
minute,
on
before
this.
you close, I just want to give you a shout out because we've been talking about
Yeah.
the whole
Talk about
director, artist thing. You really have carried this film on your shoulders for the last year through the effects process and all that. And I just want to give you a shout out.
Yeah.
'Cause
Thank
this
you
was
very
a-
much.
Because when
This
you
was a
couldn't be
multiple.
on the set, he was speaking for you, and it was like having you there. You know, having my own Terminator with me on the set. So, and through post and through everything.
And at
So
every turn
the
you
greatest
teach me
producers changed
what
my mind
producing
with
is
producing.
all
Thank you very much. We're going to move on.
No. Yeah.
So, thank you all for the commitment for this movie, for being here today and being with us. And thank you for the audience for coming tonight to see this special screening. Thank you very much.
Enjoy.